Evelyn Hart disappeared on a stretch of Texas highway that most people forgot the moment they drove past it. The kind of road that didn't curve or climb, didn't offer scenery or comfort, only distance. It was the kind of place where your thoughts grew louder the longer you stayed alone with them. She was 32 years old, and she had been alone for most of her adult life. Not lonely, alone. There was a difference she had learned to protect. Evelyn traveled for work, photographing abandoned places, dying towns, forgotten properties scheduled for demolition. She believed places held memories the way people did, and she liked capturing them before they were erased. On the morning she vanished, she left Austin just after sunrise. She stopped for coffee once, paid in cash, and smiled at the cashier. That was the last confirmed sighting of her by someone who would later remember her face. Her phone signal faded less than an hour later. The highway stretched endlessly in front of her, heat already rising off the pavement. She drove with the windows cracked, listening to the hum of the tires in the wind. The radio lost stations one by one until only static remained. She turned it off. She didn't notice when the road signs changed. The names became unfamiliar. The distances stopped making sense. 20 miles to a town she had never heard of. No mileage marker after that. Just empty land, scrub brush, and the occasional fence that seemed to run forever and lead nowhere. She passed a billboard standing alone in the dirt. The paint was sun-bleached and peeling, the message barely readable. "You are not lost," below it in smaller letters. "You are being watched." Evelyn slowed down without realizing it. Her foot eased off the gas. Something about the sign unsettled her, not because it was threatening, but because it felt personal, as if it had been placed there for her alone. She reached for her camera and took a photo through the windshield. The shutter clicked, and for just a moment, she had the strange sensation that someone had reacted to the sound. She kept driving. The town appeared suddenly as if it had been hiding until the last second. A cluster of low buildings, most of them faded and cracked, pressed close together like they were trying to stay warm. A rusted sign leaned at the entrance. Merrow Creek population, 417. Someone had scratched something into the metal beneath the lettering. "Don't stay." Evelyn read it twice, then smiled to herself. She had seen warnings like that before. Locals trying to scare off outsiders. It made towns feel mysterious, important. She drove in anyway. The streets were almost empty. A pickup truck sat idling outside a closed grocery store. Curtains moved in a house across the road, then went still. A man stood near a telephone pole, watching her car pass, his face unreadable. She parked in front of the only motel she could find, the Lone Star Rest. The neon sign flickered weakly, buzzing like an insect trapped in glass. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old carpet cleaner. The front desk was worn smooth by decades of elbows. A man stood behind it, thin and pale, his eyes too focused, like he was memorizing her face. "Room for the night," Evelyn said. The man didn't respond immediately. He studied her, then glanced out the window, then back at her. "You passing through?" he asked. "Just working," she said. "Photographer." He nodded slowly, as if that explained something important. "You shouldn't stay long," he said. She forced a polite laugh. "I won't." He slid a key across the counter. "Room 6. No visitors," he added. "Lock the door." That night, Evelyn lay on the bed fully dressed, listening to sounds she couldn't identify. Footsteps on gravel. Low voices outside her window. Something heavy being dragged across the ground. Stopping, then starting again. She told herself it was nothing. She fell asleep anyway. In the morning, she drove out to the Hartwell Ranch, 20 miles from town. The road there was narrow and cracked, swallowed by weeds. Her GPS stopped responding entirely. She followed the printed directions instead, each turn taking her farther from anything recognizable. The ranch house stood alone when she arrived, its wood gray and warped, windows dark like empty sockets. The air felt wrong, still, pressurized. She stepped inside. The floorboards creaked loudly beneath her boots, the sound echoing through the empty rooms. Dust coated most surfaces, but not all. Some areas looked disturbed, recent. She raised her camera and began taking photos. Symbols were carved into the walls, circles, lines, shapes that didn't look decorative or random. Some were stained a dark brown that had soaked deep into the wood. She leaned closer. It wasn't paint. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. No signal, but a voicemail notification blinked on the screen. She pressed play. At first there was only static, then breathing, slow, controlled. And then a voice she recognized immediately, her own. "I shouldn't be here," the voice whispered. "I think I made a mistake." Evelyn stepped back, her heart pounding hard enough to hurt. The voicemail ended abruptly. Her phone went dark. Outside, the wind picked up, and somewhere on the property, a door slammed shut. Evelyn stood frozen as the echo of the slammed door rolled through the ranch house and dissolved into silence. Her first instinct was to run, but her body didn't obey. The air felt heavier now, as if the house had closed around her, sealing itself. She listened, straining to hear another sound, but there was nothing. No footsteps, no wind through broken windows, not even insects. It was the kind of quiet that felt deliberate. She told herself the voicemail had to be a glitch, an accidental recording, her voice replayed by coincidence. Yet she knew her own fear, her own cadence. The whisper had carried certainty, not confusion. It sounded like someone who already understood what was happening and knew there was no way out. She forced herself forward, room by room, photographing everything. If something happened to her, she wanted proof. The symbols repeated throughout the house, growing more frequent the deeper she went, until nearly every wall carried them. Some were layered on top of others, carved again and again, as if repetition mattered, as if the house needed to remember. In what must have been a bedroom, she found a mattress on the floor. The dust around it was disturbed. Fresh footprints, not hers. Her chest tightened. She backed out slowly and headed for the front door, already reaching for her keys, when she realized the light had changed. The afternoon sun that had poured through the windows was gone. Outside, the sky had dimmed to an unnatural gray, the sun hanging low and distorted, like it had been stretched thin. She tried the door. Locked. She hadn't locked it. A sound came from behind her, not footsteps, breathing, close. She turned. No one was there. Then she heard it again, coming from everywhere at once, layered, overlapping. Multiple breaths, some slow, some shallow, some strained, like people trying not to be heard. Her phone vibrated again. Another voicemail. She didn't want to listen, but she did. This time, her voice was calmer, almost resigned. "They don't chase you," the voice said. "They wait. They've already decided." Evelyn screamed and threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall, the screen spiderwebbing, still glowing faintly before going dark for good. The front door creaked open behind her. She ran. She burst out of the house and sprinted toward her car, gravel tearing at her shoes, heart hammering so hard she thought she might black out. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She could feel eyes on her, dozens of them, watching with patience rather than urgency. Her car door was open. She hadn't left it open. Her camera bag sat on the passenger seat, exactly where she'd left it. But something else was there now, a folded piece of paper. She grabbed it without thinking, slammed the door shut, and locked it. Her hands shook as she unfolded the note. "Welcome home, Evelyn." She dropped it and tried to start the engine. Nothing. She tried again. The dashboard lights flickered, then died. The breathing returned, louder now, surrounding the car. Shadows moved at the edge of her vision, figures standing just far enough away that she couldn't see their faces, only their shapes. Men, women, some tall, some hunched, all still. One of them stepped forward. It was the motel clerk. His expression was calm, almost kind. "You weren't supposed to leave," he said. She screamed at him, begged him, demanded he explain what was happening, but he only shook his head. "You were already chosen," he said. "You heard the message. That was you. From later." The others moved closer. She tried to run again, but hands grabbed her arms, her legs, her hair. They were strong, too strong. She fought until her body gave out, until fear drained into exhaustion, until the sky above her darkened completely. No one heard her scream. No one came. Evelyn Hart died on the Hartwell Ranch before sunset. They buried her where the symbols were deepest, where the ground had been disturbed many times before. They worked quietly, efficiently, like people who had done this often. When they finished, they carved new marks into the walls of the house. One more layer, one more memory preserved. By morning, the ranch looked abandoned again. Weeks passed. No one searched right away. Adults went missing all the time. Eventually, her family filed a report. Her car was found days later, abandoned on the highway miles from Marrow Creek, wiped clean, keys inside. The town was questioned. Everyone claimed they'd never seen her. And that was almost true. Marrow Creek returned to its routines. The motel kept flickering. The ranch waited. Months later, a young couple driving through Texas late at night lost their signal and followed a detour they didn't remember turning onto. They passed a weathered billboard standing alone in the dirt. "You are not lost." Below it, freshly painted now. "You are expected." The woman in the passenger seat lifted her phone and snapped a photo. The shutter clicked, and deep beneath the Hartwell Ranch, something stirred, as if awakening, as if listening, as if smiling, because somewhere in the dark, a phone buzzed with a new voicemail, recorded in a familiar voice, whispering calmly, patiently, exactly as it had before. "I shouldn't be here." And this time, it wasn't Evelyn's voice at all. It was hers,